class is back in session. Welcome to another episode of Relationship Boss Academy. I hope you're all doing fantastic and amazing. It is officially like mid-September now, which means like it's full fall in my household. I tried to push the envelope early September, but it was still, we were having like our second summer. It was still really hot. It was really sunny. The vibes like weren't vibing with like fall. And now Seattle, Washington has entered its dark days. So the weather is dark. It is chilly. We are in the mid 60s now. The pumpkins are out in my house. Pumpkin spice is flowing and delicious, and I'm so excited about that because I love the fall. I thrive in the fall. I was meant for coziness. I was meant for hoodies and blankets and warm slippers and all of those cool bits. So I'm a very happy girl now that it is like full on fall. I haven't convinced my husband to let me do horror movies yet. We're starting slow with the classic fall shows, fall movies, like You've Got Mail, Dan in Real Life. Maybe we'll move into some thrillers soon. And then once October comes, that's when we have the full list of Halloween movies that I do love to watch. Today's been busy so far. And I love busy days. I thrive on busy days. And I had a client session this morning that really got me thinking about kind of what I wanted to talk about today. And the title of this episode is How to Get Your Ex Back. But I did that on purpose because I think that is always the question that we ask ourselves when we end a relationship and maybe we're second guessing the decision that we made and trying desperately to just ask ourselves, okay, how do I get my ex back? Or maybe you messed up in that relationship and you just want to ask yourself and try and give yourself instant gratification, operate from a place of desperation. How do I get my ex back? But I think that the question that you have to ask yourself first before you even ask yourself, how do I get my ex back? Is why do I want to get my ex back? Do I want to get back together with my ex? That's an important question to ask instead of operating from that place of immediate desperation. Because I've gotten back together with 2 exes, all right? One of those exes, I'm now married to. Another one of those exes, I should not have even contemplated how to get back together with him, okay? When I broke up with my unhealthy ex, the one we don't really speak of, but you've heard me talk about and tell stories of course, right? When we first broke up, when he broke up with me, I immediately went to Google and was like, how do I get my ex back? How do I get my ex back? And this was like, I had to go to Google because this was before the days of like podcasts. This was before TikTok and Instagram and being able to fuel my delusion of wanting to get this person back, all right? I'm not saying wanting to get your ex back is delusional. Me wanting to get this particular person back was delusional. And instead of asking how to get him back, I should have been asking myself, why am I even thinking about wanting to get back together with him? All right. When we think about getting back together with someone, I think our immediate reaction comes from that place of desperation. It comes from that place of being afraid of losing this person forever. It comes from being like, this is all I know. This is who I want to be with. But pause for a second and instead reflect on that relationship. Reflect on the good things. And if the good outweighed the bad, that's fantastic. That's amazing. Great. But then you also have to pay attention to what didn't work. You have to pay attention to why you're even exes in the first place. Because for any relationship to ever work out, if you go on a break, if you break up, something was clearly not working, right? And we often just get back together with people because it's easy, it's familiar, it's comfortable, it's what we know. It prevents us from being alone, right? I get it. But you have to make sure that what didn't work the first time is going to work this time, because that problem isn't going to just magically disappear. It isn't going to just magically go away. You have to pay attention to what wasn't working. And when I ended up kind of, I guess you could say, getting back together with like my ex, it was horrible. It was horrible because I didn't ask myself that question. Why do I even want to get back together with him to begin with? We were doing the same exact things that we were doing before. The same unhealthy patterns were still there. The same struggles that I was having with my own self-esteem and my own confidence, they didn't just magically go away because we decided to get back together and someone chose me, right? Because we often tie our worth and our self-esteem and how good enough we are in someone choosing to be with us, someone wanting us. They chose me. I'm worthy. They want to be with me. I must be enough, right? But when we got back together, we ended up breaking up a week later because nothing changed. We were just getting back together to go through the motions of getting back together. But when I got back together with my now husband, totally different story, clearly. We're married, right? That breakup was very different. I don't know if I ever talked about that. I may have talked about it on an episode with him like a really long time ago, but 3 months into our relationship, he did break up with me. He did. And he pulled the whole thing about, I'm just not ready to settle down. I don't know if I want a serious relationship right now. I'm only 24. I don't know if I want to commit, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, cool. Okay, fine. And I decided to handle this very differently than I handled the breakup with my ex before. With my ex before, like, I was desperate. I wanted, like, oh my God, I just wanted to win him back so bad. I would message all the time and be there all the time. I did everything that Google told me not to do, first of all, okay? Everything that it said, I did the opposite. Giving them space, no, what's that? Letting them do their thing, focusing on myself, no, I did not do that. But this time I was going to do it differently because I knew that this person was very different than who my ex was, clearly, right? So I gave it space. I let it breathe. And I asked myself, do I want to get back together with this person? And ultimately, I did want to get back together with him, but he had broken up with me. It was out of my control. So what was in my control? Only the things that I could control, only the things that I could do. So I did give it space. I did let it breathe. I let him work through whatever he needed to work through, right? Because according to me, our only problem was he didn't know if he was ready to commit. So I wanted to give him that space to figure that out on his own. The problems I had with my ex before, oh my God, they were a plethora of problems. There was no communication. There was no trust. He was verbally abusive. He was emotionally abusive. He eventually got physically abusive. Like, totally different spectrums, okay? I gave Anthony space. I did. And so I focused on me. I still traveled. I even remember the trip that I took to Vegas with my friend. I did my thing. I was still posting pictures. I was still doing what I wanted to do, but I still made sure he knew that I was thinking about him. Not in an overbearing way, but in a really healthy way. I handled this in a very different way because my why for wanting to get back together with him was so different than my why from my ex. My why this time was because I did see a future with him. My why this time was because the good did outweigh that bad. My why this time was because I did feel safe with him and I knew that this had potential. So I would just send little messages and just say, listen, I miss you. And I was never afraid to go after what I wanted in a healthy way in this process because I was starting to build confidence within myself. I was feeling like I had high self-esteem. Even though he did break up with me, I knew who I was because I had done that work. Still do that work to this day, but I had done a significant amount of it, okay? Eventually, he did reach out. And I took it slow, and I wasn't trying to force anything. I wasn't trying to push him into wanting to get back together with me. I was still letting him be able to come to the decisions that he needed to come to because he needed to figure out if he wanted to commit to me or not, right? Spoiler alert, he did. He did. Now, he will say to this day that I stalked him. No, I did not, okay? But we did run into each other multiple times on the subway. And my explanation for that is I knew when he would be like leaving the gym or leaving somewhere, but we were in totally different parts of town. Okay. I was like in the Upper East Side. I don't even know. He was like somewhere midtown, I think ish. But we lived like one stop away from each other on the subway. So I knew what car we would get into though, because I wanted to get into the car where the subway doors open right at your exit. Who doesn't? So did he. But could I control the timing and the alignment of like knowing exactly when he left and being exactly on that train car, me having to walk the amount of blocks I had to walk to be on that exact train, to be in that exact train car? No, I couldn't control that. And eventually we did run into each other on the train. We did. And I think that us seeing each other and knowing that the universe was bringing us back together was a sign enough for me. And I don't know, we can ask him eventually. We can see if that was a sign for him to attest to. So he knew that I was the one for him as well. But if you were to ask him officially, I think that he would say he just came to the realization during the time that we did spend apart to realize that I was the one that he didn't want to commit to. And, you know, at age 24, sometimes we're scared of that commitment. It's scary. And when you meet your person, sometimes it does freak us out a little bit. But you guys know that I'm a firm believer that if the universe wants you together, it'll bring you back together. It'll bring you together. So if you started listening to this episode because you're like, oh my God, how do I get my ex back? I need that information. I just want to encourage you to ask yourself a different question. I want you to ask yourself, why do I want to get back together with my ex? What good things did we have? What were some of the negative things that we needed to work on? And if we do get back together, do we have the tools to be able to want to work on those things? Do we have the energy and the space and the time to be able to work on those things, right? In short, if you are going through a breakup and you are trying to get back together with someone, maybe you messed up and you're trying to get in their good graces again, the biggest piece of advice that I can give to you is let it breathe. Let it have its space. Because if they need to come to a realization, they will. If you need to come to a realization, you will. At the same time, healthily communicate how you feel, right? With no expectations. That's something that I did with my now husband during that time. I wasn't afraid to tell him I missed him in a very casual way, in a non-pressured way. I wasn't afraid to make him know, like, listen, like, I do want us to work out. Whenever you feel ready to talk, I am here. And I wouldn't put any pressure and I wouldn't put any expectations on that situation and that scenario because I made that mistake before and it was for all the wrong reasons. And it absolutely did backfire in my face, you know? And so I think that if you're even debating getting back together with a partner, just give it some time to breathe. Focus on yourself. Focus on your controllables, which is you and only you. You know, get really hyper fixated on a goal that you want to do for yourself. If you messed up in that relationship and you know why or you don't know why, take that time to explore that. Because if your ex does come back, if that person does come back into your life and they're like, okay, I'm really ready to make this work again, you want to be in a place where like, you're like, I took what you said seriously and I started putting in the work that I really needed to put in. This is everything that I have done during our time apart. I was productive. I was intentional with that space. So be intentional with everything that you choose to do if you were on a break or if you were going through a breakup. And that intention should just always be to really do your own self-reflection, go inward, see the areas where we can be doing better or where we can grow from or we need to evolve into or heal from or whatever the case may be, right? So be very intentional about the things that you choose to do with that space because it's going to work out in your favor if that person does come back and they do decide that they want to make this relationship work. All right, trust me on that one. Focus on your controllables, and that's you. All right. I hope that this episode was helpful. I know that, we get really sad when we go through breakups and we start to operate from a place of desperation. Trust me, I've been there. But anything that is meant for you is never, ever, ever going to pass you by. And I know how cheesy and I know how cliche that sounds, but it's just so beyond true. So really trust yourself to know that whatever happens, you will be okay. Okay? I love you all so much. Make sure that if you want more detailed tea, bonus episodes, unfiltered episodes, you are subscribing to the Patreon. You can find the link in the body of this episode. If you ever want to work with me privately one-on-one, I am always taking on new clients. Feel free to apply or book a private session with me. Download one of my workbooks, whatever feels aligned for you. And if you are listening to this in the morning, afternoon, or night, my loves, I hope you have an amazing morning, afternoon, or night.